guys, welcome back to the Ugly Chairs podcast. So I have some special guests, and I have a really important question to start us off with. So one, I want you to introduce yourself, and then I would love to know, in honor of spooky season, what was your favorite Halloween costume that you ever wore, dressed up as?
Oh my goodness. There's a lot to choose from for me. I love dressing up. Actually, one I did recently, I was part of the Men in Black. We did like a Men in Black thing. So we like each wore a suit. We had like a little like, I don't know what they call it from the movie with that little thing. I am a white man. My friend was black. We both did it together. It was really good. My name's Adam.
My name's Adam. And my name's Drew. I was not in that duo. When I was in college, we had a costume party, and I found this costume that has a fan in it, and it inflates, and it makes it look like you're riding an ostrich.
Oh, awesome.
And so that was my favorite. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Wasn't very spooky. I'm not a big spooky boy. I like goofy. I'm more of a goofy guy.
Yeah, silly, goofy mood.
And I'm Drew.
Well, I'm Allie, and my favorite was a couple years ago. I dressed up as a Gatorade water bottle.
What flavor?
It was like the water bottle,
Like the orange water bottle.
green water bottle.
Oh, yeah.
They have green water bottles?
Yeah, like the ones that like
ones
you
that-
see in sports
Yeah,
games.
Every student athlete has in the back of their backpack.
Yep.
That's normally Powerade.
Orange top.
Yep.
Yeah.
Orange top. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
and
we're
the-
like a green morph suit.
It'll be like 8 a.m. and they're like squirting it into their mouth, and like in a class.
They're like in math.
Yeah,
And
literally.
it has the tape around it that says like Neville number 9.
Yeah, dude.
And they don't wash it all season, so they get
There's
mold
mold
in
in
it. And they're like, I don't know why I'm sick all the time.
Season ends, you're like,
There's like
I have the
iced
flu all
coffee in
of a
there.
sudden.
They switch from iced coffee to water at noon.
They're drinking Kool-Aid in the morning. What flavor is it? Red?
In the South, it's sweet tea in there.
We just offended so many people in the first 5 seconds.
South Pennsylvania or the South?
Solanco, Southern Lancaster County.
Okay. Golden Mules.
Solanco? That's a thing.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a school
that's-
district.
It is actually a school
Wow,
district.
that's
Yeah.
Solanco, Southern Lancaster County.
It's kind of sick, actually.
No, yeah,
That's where they get it
so
from.
Sick. Cool. Well, we have a lot of little snacks
Ooh.
up there. How do you guys feel about fall flavored foods?
I'm in, all in. Fall's my favorite season. A lot to love. And one of the biggest things to love is the food. Don't mind if I do.
Are you like an apple guy, a pumpkin guy, a cinnamon?
Big apple guy. Yeah, apples more than pumpkin.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say I'm as much as Adam is. I think I like the Christmas flavors more. The cinnamons, the nutmegs, things like that. Apple over pumpkin.
Dude, you ever have those little the cookies that you like cut out of the package that are in a roll? They've got a little Christmas tree on them.
Oh, yeah.
Those things go hard.
I think they're just sugar cookies.
They have them for Halloween though too, that are like little like.
And they have the
pumpkins,
pumpkin ones.
And they're also flames.
Yeah, they're so good.
They made football ones, and
Does it have a football on it?
well, it just is a football. It's the shape of a football.
Oh, it is a football.
Yeah.
We're talking round with
No, it's the
food coloring.
It's the same ones though.
It's got a little football in it.
Yeah.
But they
It is.
they took that cookie and they just made it in the shape of a
Yeah.
football. It's
I
the
don't
same.
know if I want that.
Well, it's literally the same thing. It tastes just as good, but
No, I want round with food coloring in the middle.
I'm afraid to try that.
okay.
If you think about it, you could do
that's-
anything in those cookies.
Yeah, they do
could
make
put any
them for like
design.
pretty much every single
We could-
holiday now.
Could we like get Ugly Chairs podcast cookies?
Yeah, and it would look
You
like this
can
one.
make them, and the next time we'll eat them.
I'll submit it to Nestle or whoever makes them.
I
I'm
think
assuming
that's
it's Nestle.
Pillsbury.
Yeah,
Pillsbury.
it feels like a Pillsbury thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you did say you were afraid of something, and that was a great segue that you didn't even know you did.
Ooh,
Or did I?
transition.
Maybe. So today we're going to talk all about fears. So to start us off a little lighter until we end up crying all together, we're not going to do that. What are some of the weird fears that you guys have? Or do you have any weird fears?
I don't know if we're there relationally for me just to expose all the weird ones I have.
Well, like, okay, don't make it like that weird, but like I'm afraid of squirrels. That's like just
Squirrels?
yeah, squirrels.
Is it
Why?
their bushy tails and their lovable eyes?
I think it's the fact that they're just like rats with extended tails. But also a squirrel fell on me the one time when I was walking to school when I
Whoa.
was little, and I was traumatized. And now I see them and I'm afraid.
You know I have a squirrel tattoo,
I
right?
hate that so much for you.
I think they're just wonderful creatures
Oh,
that remind me of God's love for me.
cute. I don't like them.
Weird fears. My biggest fear is the deep, dark ocean. That's not that weird, I guess.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Like you won't swim in the ocean?
I'll swim in it. If I got dropped in the middle of it, I would be really afraid.
Yeah. Fair
Has
enough.
that
that
ever
weird.
happened to you?
No, I'm really hoping it doesn't.
Okay.
I'm
So like, would you
afraid
go on
that
a
it would.
cruise?
Yeah, I would go. I would not jump off the edge.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think you're allowed to on a cruise.
You're not supposed to do that.
Well, I won't be
It's
doing
not a
that.
cruise activity. A cruise activity is like mini golfing or silent disco, not jumping off the cruise ship.
Then I'll be good.
Yeah,
Be good.
I think you can go.
Actually, here is one of my fears. It's doing stand-up comedy. Unlike prepared. Being forced.
I don't think it helped that both of us didn't say anything. We just stared.
Imagine that, though. Someone's like, you're on in 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm on. I'm here to enjoy the show. And then you have to go up front and try to make people laugh. That's terrifying.
If it makes you feel any better, in college, I took this class where I had to give like teachings, like how we do on like a Wednesday or Sunday night. And after one of them, one of my professors said, I think you should do stand-up comedy.
Wow.
And I said, that was supposed to be like a life-changing teaching. And you just told me I should become a comedian.
not, not a pastor, what I was trying to do.
It's like, it's okay. That's just what my major is. I'll try again.
I think you could just say no. Like, you're a grown man. They could be like, you should go do stand-up. And you could be like, no,
That's
I'm not
true.
going to do that.
You're right. I'm not afraid anymore.
There you go. It actually
you
kind of made
for
me...
Solved it.
Exercising that fear for my life.
There you go. Blessings to you. I don't know if this is an odd one, but heights, and that's pretty common, but I'm okay if I have a solid foundation. Like if I'm in a tall building, totally fine. If I'm on the roof of it, like it feels secure. It's those like wobbly things.
So like you're not going on like the giant swing or a ropes course.
Higher.
Okay.
Higher.
Like Nick Wallenda, tight roping across Niagara Falls.
Yeah, that dude.
Yeah.
Nope. In college, I did an outdoor leadership minor. CIU, shout out. And one of the things was it was called a diaper pole, and it was just like a pole straight up in the air with like a platform that was like that big, like it was tiny, and you had to like get up and then like stand on it and see how long you could like stay up there and like face your fears. And I think that made me more afraid of it than anything in the entire world.
Wow. You had to wear a diaper to get on.
No, I wore my pants.
Oh, but it's called like
It's called a diaper.
it's called a
pole.
diaper because it's like it would scare you.
Yes. Yeah,
I got it.
I like the ground. Big ground guy. Love a good ground.
Why did you think he was going to be wearing a diaper?
Well, I didn't know I was called the diaper pole. It felt like maybe I thought CIU outdoor leadership. I actually don't know what outdoor leadership even is.
It's leading people not
In
inside.
the outdoors.
Okay, didn't know that was like something you could go to school for.
It was just a minor.
Yeah.
Not a major yet.
It's probably a reason.
Yeah, taller poles for that.
Oh, okay. Well, so like I said, we're going to talk about fears. And I do have one more fun question since we're already in a funny mood, I guess. If you could get rid of one of your fears, which one would you get rid of? Could be funny, could be serious, I guess.
Part of me really wants to say jumping off the side of a cruise ship, but I'm not going to do that.
Get rid of one of my fears. Probably, and this is probably more serious than not serious. Like how people perceive me. Like I'm often afraid that people are going to not like me when they meet me or just not vibe with me. And I would like to not be afraid of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I fear like loss of like loved ones or current life situations and things like that.
Yeah. I would
That's serious.
get rid of, this is also serious, like the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like I just don't do really simple things because I'm like, oh, they're not going to pick me for the kickball team. It's not that deep,
That's fair.
but I just won't. So
Because you can't get rejected if you don't play. is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
So you reject the thing.
Yeah, I reject getting rejected.
That's fair. Oh, I know I've done that before.
Yeah, me too.
It's like, you know, the poster that was in like every single high school math class. It's like you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. That's what I live by.
Yeah.
If I don't take the shot, I'm not missing it.
Is that a quote from Michael Scott?
It's Wayne Gretzky.
Oh, Wayne Gretzky. Okay. That's right.
So close.
Or Michael Jordan.
Or Michael Jordan. Yeah.
So do you guys think that fear is a good thing or a bad thing?
Yes.
Say more.
There are some things that we should be afraid of that keep us from being in an unsafe situation. Like, I think sometimes fear can be a gift of like, yeah, I'm trying to think of an example. But my mind just goes to my son. He's 9 months old, and there's certain things that like I know can harm him, but he's not old enough to like know, and he's not afraid of it. And I'm like, dude, you should be afraid of a hot oven. Like, that's a thing that you need to be afraid of because it's going to keep you from being burned.
Right.
But he doesn't have that, and it's like frightening as he's like crawling all over the place when we're making dinner. It's like, Reese, don't do that. So I think that's good fear. Is there bad fear? Most definitely. Like, there are things that are keeping us from experiencing good God has for us in our life. So I think it can be a both and.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. You just got to figure out what's the right things to be afraid about.
So what are then the right things to be afraid about?
It's a good question. I think Drew's example with his son is a good one. Just if there's something that's going to harm you or harm other people, you should probably have like a healthy amount of fear for that.
I think sometimes fear can motivate you to do good. Like a fear of failure can push you to succeed. I think my brain just goes to sports because it feels really safe in that way of like, it like motivates you. Like, I don't want to lose. I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid of disappointing my teammates because we're one unit. And so I'm going to rise to the occasion for the good of the team, for the goal that we've set. Like, I think that's good fear. And maybe I'm not defining it correctly, but I think it can be a motivating good thing that leads you to good things. Like, man, if you have a friend that doesn't know Jesus, and man, we believe that eternal life is only through Jesus, and he doesn't know Jesus, there is a fear of like, I don't get to spend eternity with my best friend. Most definitely I'm going to talk about Jesus with him, and I want him to know the best thing in the world to know.
Yeah. I think it's what you do with the fear. Like, I'm thinking about the fear of failure on a sports team. You're going to have a person that's like me that's like, well, I'm just not going to play. Like, I will choose to say it's a soccer game. It's 1-1. It's like district championship. I'm like subpar. I would probably be like, coach, do not put me in because I don't know if I will do good or I will do bad. Instead of like, you would be like, put me in. I got this. I'm about to run and kick the ball. I don't know.
That's all soccer
Dude,
is.
I actually said that to the coach, and he was like, get in.
Yeah.
I'm going to go run and kick the ball, coach. Put me in. He was like, you're up, Williams. It was great.
That's kind of what the like football announcers say though on like ESPN. They're like, the team that shows up and scores the most points is gonna win. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, that is. Anyway, okay. How do you guys typically react to fear? Either the good one or the bad one. Like, what's your, I'm afraid, here's my first reaction.
Well, I always hear about like the responses to fear. This like you could run away from it like flight. You could like freeze and not do anything, or you could try to fight back against it. I think most of the time I run away. I'm like, whatever this thing, I'm not feeling good about this, I'm out of here. Whatever this thing is that's causing me to feel this way, I don't want that, I'm out. And so that, I think a lot of it is connected to like avoiding confrontation and avoiding just difficulties in life. That's probably my first.
Yeah. I think I get a physical reaction. Some sweaty pits. That's just like the initial like, whoomp.
Yeah.
and then maybe retreat.
Right.
Man, I think it depends on what I want, though.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like, if it's fear in sports, I think I want to lean into that.
Yeah.
You're fighting.
So I fight for that. But like important things, it probably should be opposite. But important things, I feel like I freeze and then run.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely a freezer. Like, I even remember, have you guys ever been to Field of Screams?
Yeah.
Well,
I know what it is.
it's basically like you go through these haunted houses and stuff happens to you.
It's scary.
Yeah, and I'm the type of person that just like won't. You're supposed to keep walking through these houses as these people are like jumping out and scaring you. I just will stand still because I'm like, I don't want to keep going. Like that's, I'm gonna see another one of you. Like, but you can't get out unless you go through it, which is a life lesson and sad in that situation.
Seems terrible.
You really get your money's worth when you're.
You have to pay for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not in.
Then
Sorry.
people at the end come around with chainsaws and chase you around. So there's that too.
You do. Yep. Nope. Don't like that. It would cause me to run.
Or fight, maybe.
I wonder if they've ever been punched.
Oh, probably.
Because some people, when they get startled, that's their reaction, is
Right.
like to put their dukes up.
Right.
Anyways, sorry.
I don't know.
I'm just picturing all of this. Go ahead.
The next time I'm there, I'll ask them, have you ever gotten punched?
As they're like, with their chainsaw, I'm like, has anyone punched you in the face before?
Like, sit down. Let's have a serious conversation. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm not going to do that, though. Okay, so you run, you fight / freeze or run. Depends on the
depends,
situation. Yeah. Okay, and I'm definitely a freezer. So how do you think that, like, I don't know if there's necessarily a bad reaction to having fear, but there's probably, depending on the situation, a right reaction. Have you guys ever been, like, in a situation when you were faced with fear and you just knew you did not react correctly?
Yes. I know there definitely has been. I think if it's keeping me from good that God has in my life and I haven't experienced it, then I think that's on me. Like, I think there is some like human responsibility of God putting us in situations and us choosing to maybe even do the hard thing. Like you had mentioned, like sharing your faith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Man, I know that there's been times that I've like felt that nudge or like the conversation starts heading that direction.
Right.
And I like intentionally turn it away because I'm like, don't feel equipped, don't want to like hurt the relationship. And those are all like fear-based emotions that, man, the good that could have come out of that. And I know that's happened so many times. It's hard to say it happened in this situation. And here's an example because I didn't do it. So I don't even know the good that could have come out of that situation. But there have definitely been times that like later on I was like, man, he was like prodding to be like, hey, what do you actually think about life after death? Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, oh my goodness, did you see the Eagles game on Sunday? Right away from it.
Yeah. I think that's probably the good distinction to make is there's a difference between a fear of man and a fear of God. And usually my fears, sadly, come from a fear of man. It's like, I'm afraid of what this person will think of me, or I'm afraid of this person will do if I act a certain type of way. I remember I was in an Uber a couple of months ago, and my Uber driver was just we were just chatting, and then he like mentions that his wife passed away from COVID, like 2 months before that. And I was like, shoot. And so we like start talking about his life, and he's just like asking all the biggest questions about like everything. And I'm like, I need to pray for this guy. Like, I have to pray for this guy. But I keep like pushing it away. Like, it's going to be weird. Like, it doesn't sound like he even really believes in God. And then I get to the end of the ride, and like, I'm at my destination, and I didn't pray for him. And I'm like, why didn't I pray for him? And then I like leaned back into the car. I was like, hey, dude, I'm going to pray for you. Also, Jesus loves you. And then I left. But I could have just prayed for him in the car. We could have told him Jesus loved him 20 minutes earlier, and we could have been talking for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I think that, it happens all the time to me. I'll chicken out.
Yeah. What are some things that you talked about the fear of man and fear of God? What are some, like, what do you mean by fear of God?
So great question. We could probably deep dive into the fear of God. But there is something, like we talk about healthy fears.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that you ought to be afraid of. And God's someone that's, he deserves some amount of fear because we are man. He's God. And in Psalms it says, let your words be few, because he's on just a different level. And so there's something to that.
That's good.
Yeah, the way that he wants us to live matters, and we should be considering that as we live.
Yeah. And so that fear almost causes you to do the good that you ought to do.
Right.
Of like respecting him, reverence to him, recognizing the difference between you and God.
Yep.
There's a closeness in relationship, but there's a difference in being and power and purpose and all of that. It's good.
Yeah. And how often do we miss that too? Like live like we're not afraid.
Yeah. It's that weird tension of the relationship with Jesus of he's close as a friend. He's your heavenly Father. Like there is this like intimacy, this closeness of like I can be so honest with him. I can come to him all the time. There's nothing that can separate me from God because of Jesus. But on the other end of the spectrum, that is equally as true of like he is God and you are not. And
Right.
You are in so many ways nothing like him. Even though we're made in his image, he is all powerful. He's all knowing. It's this weird tension of like, where does the fear of God in this tension cause me to do what is right?
Right. Not to use a cliche line, but in the Chronicles of Narnia, Aslan represents God. And at one point, I'm going to butcher this probably, but at one point, one of the characters is like, is Aslan safe?
Yeah.
And another character is like, well, we didn't really say anything about safe, but he is good.
And he's king.
Uh-huh.
And I love that. He's good, and then the beaver puts him on, that's such a, I love Narnia, puts him on the correct pedestal.
Right.
Of like, I want you to recognize your visitors here in Narnia, and he's good, and he's the king.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
I've never watched Narnia.
You could read it too.
Yeah, I've never read it either.
Yeah, the books.
Yeah, I know.
C.S. Lewis, Clive Staples. Shout out.
It's a worth a watch.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
Viewers, it's worth a watch.
I'll go home and do that. Get a nice apple cider.
Oh.
Watch it.
Yeah, that's a perfect fall activity.
Yeah,
Gosh.
except it's always winter and never Christmas in Narnia.
Fair.
Christmas is great. That's so sad for them.
Yep.
What was I? We were talking about fears. I was gonna say one of the things that popped into my head when you guys were talking was that sometimes I think it's hard because there's this wrestle between, yes, fearing God, but like it's hard because a lot of times in, I guess, society and our culture, it's like you've nothing to be afraid of. And like, just live your life and like do the most. And that's all we ever hear. And then there's this other side that's like, well, you shouldn't be afraid because you have God on your side. And then there's like the third step of like, but you also need to fear God. And I feel like that's just like a three-way tension.
Right.
That a lot of our students probably are wrestling with on a pretty much a daily basis. So what would you guys advise? How do you navigate that tension?
I think that just live your life scares me.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm not living the life that I think is best.
Yeah.
Because I know myself and know my heart, and it's not this like, oh, I'm this wicked evil person, but I think I just know what tugs at my heart. I think I know what I desire that's not good.
Right.
And if I was just like, YOLO, let's go after this. If you only live once, you're not following Jesus because he offers you eternal life. Right. And like that nearsighted perspective of like when we look at eternity and the life we have here, if we're living it for myself and just to like not operate in fear, like I think you're like missing it, and you're missing something that's so good and so much better than like what Drew Williams thinks is best for Drew Williams. Like God created me with a plan and a purpose, and it's so much bigger than myself, and it's so much better than me just trying to like satisfy these desires of my life.
Yeah, and you brought up that there's like a tension, like a three-way, like, oh, like you're not supposed to be afraid because God solved your fear, but then also you are supposed to be afraid of God. And like you feel that tension that's pulling on you. I think that's okay. That's probably one of the biggest things I've learned in my life. And Drew, actually, you've helped me a lot, like knowing this. It's okay to live in tension sometimes. We don't have to solve every single tension in our lives. Sometimes you just live in that. And it's kind of how life is meant to be.
Isn't that where growth happens?
Yeah.
Is like in the friction and the tension of like swinging to one extreme. You just find other people that are living in that extreme and you're like, woo, go us.
Right.
But there's something about living in this middle that like you learn more about who God is. You learn more about who you are and what you've created to be. And like there's this refining that happens in tension. There's this smoothing out. There's this polishing. There's this like redeeming thing that happens like in this middle tension. And it hurts and it stinks. And sometimes you slide away because of fear to one extreme. But like, man, get pulled back into that middle of biblical tension. And I think that's the best place to be.
Right.
Yeah. I always think about like when you're living in tension, it's kind of like when you do like conditioning for sports, where like it's kind of terrible in the moment and it hurts. But then when you have to run for 90 minutes straight, no subs, and you can do it, you're like, oh man, like I'm glad I went through that because now I'm on the other side of the hurt and the pain. And it feels like I'm equipped to go through this. So yeah, I think it's hard because there's always those two sides that we hear about fear and when it comes to our relationship with God. So I'd love for us to answer a couple of our students' questions.
Get it.
Let's do it.
So how could you help a friend who is also struggling with fear? So like a fear that's pretty overwhelming. Not just like, I'm afraid of the ocean.
I think what we talked about anxiety in our last podcast. If you didn't listen to that, go back probably and listen to that. Probably help. Some of these things will cross over and be the same. But I think just letting them know that you're there for them and that you are on their side. It means a lot, I think, just to know that somebody else is in your corner.
And we've all experienced fear. So even if it's not the exact situation of like they're in a situation you've never been in and they're experiencing fear, you can't be like, man, I've been there. They'd be like, no, you haven't. I know you. But I think there was something of like, I've experienced fear before.
Right, yeah.
So I can understand at some level. And let me pray for you. Yeah. Here's how I saw God work through that fear of that situation. I think those can be really encouraging.
Yep.
Yeah, I think kind of like I said with the last one is asking a friend what they want you to do to help them.
Yeah.
Like,
That's so good.
Do you want me to do this with you together? Like, are you afraid of trying out for a team? Like, is it something we can do together?
Yeah.
Are you afraid of, honestly, like I had a friend in high school who was afraid of going on like a roller coaster and we were at Hershey Park for like a youth group thing. And she was like, will you do this with me? I know it's like a little baby roller coaster, but I was like, heck yeah, like this is my favorite one. We don't go upside down, like everything's fine. And I did it with her and she was like, if I would have done that by myself, it would have been miserable. One, because there was like a bunch of 6-year-olds on it, but also because...
Was this the teacups? Is that so?
No, it's like the Trailblazer. But like, because I did it with her, I think she felt like safe enough to take that first step. Like, I don't know. I can't remember if by the end we went on like Sky Rush, but I think the more and more you lean in and do those things with your friends, like one, it's going to make your relationship stronger. Because now I know like if I was afraid of doing something, like she might step in and do that thing with me.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be just like, nope, we're not going to do it. But you never know, like your friend might want that.
That's really good. I also think I would want to know, are they a follower of Jesus? Because that's going to also change a lot about how I would answer. Because if they aren't, here's a great chance for you to share what God has done for you in your own fears. Because hopefully, if you're a follower of Jesus, God has helped you through some fears in your life. And if they're not, it's a great chance for you to say, yo, you need to know about Jesus because of what he can do for your fears. Like Romans 8 talks about us being more than conquerors. You're more than a conqueror if you have Jesus. If you don't, you're not.
Yeah. Is hope the antidote of fear?
Yeah, I think so.
Or maybe it just helps. I don't know if it's the complete antidote, but like I have hope because of Jesus.
Right.
Even in the most fearful situation, I have hope because I know he's in control and he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
You guys just answered my next question, so I'm just throwing away my paper. Jeez Louise. So this one is about fear and stress. So what, and you guys kind of also answered this, but we'll maybe lean more into the stress part. What is a way to overcome fear and stress?
I think it's different for every person. Like stress management. I think people feel stress differently, if that makes sense. Like, I feel stress very physically. Like, I get to a point where all of a sudden my body is like, you are not dealing with this. Even though, like, my mind and my gut is like, power through, we've got this, just do. My body's like, nope, shutting down.
Right.
And now I've been like, I have gone way too far in not dealing with this. And then I have to like backtrack and kind of figure out what's going on. But my wife doesn't feel it physically. You know, she feels it like very mentally. It's something that consumes her mind. Like, she thinks about it and internally processes it. And I can even see that like processing and that like grinding that goes on like in her mind. And so if someone came to us and like talked about how to deal with stress, I think it would be two totally different tools that we would need.
What you're almost kind of saying though, Drew, it sounds like, is that you're a whole person. Like, part of your way to like help the mental stress you're dealing with is to physically get into a good place. Yeah. And like, you can't separate your spiritual life from your mental life, from your physical life, because they're all kind of one thing. And I think that's probably a good, like, are you sleeping enough? Are you eating good food? Are you doing things that take that stress away, physically even, so that like mentally you'll be good? I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. And taking care of that now at your age is huge, because there's just things I just didn't do in my teenage years, my 20s, and now that I'm in my 30s, I'm feeling the effects of. And I was like, why didn't I just do those things like sleep, healthy eating, exercise, spending time with like good friends, spending time with God, you know, sitting in silence, listening more. Like, those are just like tools that you can go and do right now.
Right.
Like, I don't need to teach you to sit and be quiet and listen to God. Just go sit, be quiet, and listen.
Dude, I heard someone say the other day, we talk a lot about like self-care, I feel like, in our society, and like it's a very popular term. And they were saying we should replace that term with the term soul care. Because like human beings have souls. It's actually like the most important part about us. It's our internal being. And it's the part that God is most concerned about. And it's like more all-encompassing than self. You know, it's like your soul is your spiritual life mixed with your mental and your physical. And when you talk about caring for your soul, that's a way deeper thing than even like self-care.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes me stress is I'm constantly taking things in. Like in the car, Spotify, podcasts, when I'm mowing the lawn, same thing. When I'm in the bathroom, I'm on my phone. Like, I don't even have like those moments to like be quiet. The other day, I was driving and hit like a dead zone for my phone, and my Spotify like stopped playing.
Stress immediately.
No, it was this like weird relief.
Really? Interesting.
Of just like hearing the tires and the quietness. And I was like, all day I've been taking things in. Conversations with people, listening to music, reading, like just in. And I was like, it was this weird moment of like stress relief. And I'm like, I think I need to start even just driving without music or podcast. Or I need to mow my yard and just mow. And just like, man, I don't think we realize the stress that comes in our life. And I'm always fearful of what's going to happen if like, I don't know if we were created to intake this much. We're just so connected. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm rambling now because I've been thinking a lot about this week of like, we are so connected to the world. We know about like almost every tragedy that happens.
Right.
Was I created to know about the wildfires in Canada the second they happen? Because at the same time in the Middle East, there's things going on, and then there's flooding down south, and there's, you know, all that's my day. And before this connectivity, we were in our community and we had the cares of our community. And the stress and the fear of like just knowing everything that's going on at once. I think God's supposed to know, and he does know everything that's going on at once. I don't know if I was created to, and it makes me stressed and it gives me fear. I need to just like disconnect a little bit.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I really was wrestling with last year was definitely overcoming the fear that I had of kind of like that, like I was too afraid of being by myself because then I didn't know what was happening. So kind of over the summer, I started this like process for me of like learning how to be alone and just be in like allow myself to be with my thoughts, which is terrifying because a lot goes on up here. And it sounds like super silly, but I was so embarrassed to like go to a restaurant by myself. And now like I do that every single Friday. I will go to a restaurant, I will sit, I won't go on my phone, and I will just sit there and I will eat my breakfast and I will drink my coffee. And then when I'm done, I'm leave. And it's like, it was super weird at the beginning because I had to get over the fact that like people were looking at me and I was afraid they were like, ooh, she got like stood up, or she's like a loner. Like, what? You have that like external side to it. And then the internal was like, I'm alone and now I have to process things just with myself. And then there's the like, okay, now I have to sit here, to listen to other people's conversations, hear them laugh with their friends, hear like the grinding of the coffee beans, which is great once you can like appreciate the fact that it is okay to disconnect, because the relief that you have when that happens, like that's what I would say to you. Like find a spot where you can feel connected without having the overwhelmingness of you internally taking in everything. Like you can feel connected without connecting, if that makes sense.
My fear is that I'm so overwhelmed by everything that I no longer have the correct emotional response to those.
Yeah.
Because I just get numb to it.
Right.
Like another school shooting, another hurricane, another forest fire. And I'm just like, yep. No, like that's not the correct response. But we're so overwhelmed that all of a sudden now I don't have the emotional capacity to like care. And I stop. And I don't want to get to that place.
I feel
I'm
like
fearful of that.
It's easy to almost have like empathy overload sometimes. But the more, I don't know, I think if you're aware of it, and it's okay sometimes to be numb to feelings, but as long as you have like the appropriate response when you need to, I don't know if that's like right, but that's kind of how I think about things. Like there's certain things that can happen and I'm like I wish it didn't, but that's just the world that we live in because we are fallen and we're broken. But I do know that one day, like we are going to be in heaven and those things aren't going to happen. So like, what can I do now to like either encourage people or just remind them that like, this isn't it. And there's something more that we can have the hope for, which isn't always easy when our first reaction is just another one.
Yeah. And I think what you said at the beginning, Drew, when we talked about God being sovereign and being good is important to remember. Like God's in control and he's good, even when we don't understand it. That's one of the Psalms says, be still and know that I am God. Like how often do we just need to be still and know that God has got it?
Yeah.
A lot. I do a lot.
Yeah. And even like how many times in the Bible does it say do not fear because I am with you?
So many times
like,
in the Old Testament. Yeah.
We forget sometimes when we are afraid that God is with us and like we don't have to go through it alone. Like we don't just have to keep pushing by ourselves. Like God is there, which I think is hard to remember when you're in that moment. But
right. I mean, we mentioned like, Psalm 23 in the anxiety podcast. Like literally that whole thing is about defeating fear because you know that God's got you. He's with you. He's your shepherd.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we are fearful because we don't feel close to God. But there's a story of when Jesus is on a boat with all of his disciples and there's a storm that happens and Jesus is sleeping, which I love. And the disciples are like freaking out. And Jesus woke up and like was like, why are you guys so afraid? I'm right here.
Right.
And like calmed the storm and kind of looked at him and was like, boys, like,
just wake
have
me up.
you not seen what I'm capable of doing? Do you not see my love for you? Do you not see the care I have for you? Do you not see the control I have in your lives? Like, guys, we're in the boat with Jesus. He's here. He's present. Those fears you have, and it's not like Jesus was like angry or upset. I think it was just this reminder, this like, guys, I'm here for you. I'm in control and I'm good. Just trust me. Let me calm the storms in your life.
Yeah. And if you're thinking, oh, but he's not in my boat. If you have accepted Christ as your Savior, you have the Holy Spirit. And Jesus said the advocate, which is the Holy Spirit, would even be better than if Jesus was there with you.
Yeah.
And in, I think, 2 Timothy, it says, God didn't give us a spirit of timidity or fear, but one of love, power, and self-discipline.
Yeah.
That's who the Holy Spirit is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have one more question. And this, I really like this question because I think it's a hard one for a lot of us to remember what to do here. So how do you cope with all the stress of life? They said they're a 13-year-old struggling to balance their home and school and church life.
It gets harder. I know that probably doesn't feel comforting, but like you're 13. What a great time to start figuring out what that looks like. Because the season you're in always feels like the busiest, most stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being in college and being like, I'm so overwhelmed to have all these classes. I'm on the soccer team, I'm dating, I have a job, I am serving at church, I'm doing all these things. Dude, I took like a 2-hour nap like every day. Like I had so much margin in my life, but I didn't see it, and life gets harder. It's putting those tools in your life now of like, what is it that you need? And I know you're one person, but if you break it down of like, what do I need physically? What do I need spiritually? What do I need emotionally? And figuring out what that is, and then make those a priority. If you have to, calendar them.
Yeah.
Like actually go for a run for half an hour. And that's a non-negotiable. If you have to, spend time with Jesus, reading his word and praying. I'm doing that at this time. I'm setting an alarm, and nothing else is taking priority over that.
Yeah, I feel like it's figuring out the stress points that you have. So if it is, I procrastinate, and it's like 11:50, I got 2 pages to go, and I'm just going to have to hope that the next 9 minutes I can pull together something that is about the Roman Empire and hope that it's okay. Maybe a true story. But if that's the thing, like if you're always stressing about your homework, you have to form those good habits, which take time. And like I was the person that had to make a calendar for myself, and it was so annoying because in college I was like, I don't want to be the calendar girl, which is
That's a thing?
yeah, there's like, like everybody's got their like Google Calendar and it's color coded.
Yeah.
But I would just have to be like, okay, tonight I'm going to read 8 pages of this book because I know that in 2 months it needs to be done. Yeah. And if not, I'm going to get to the Saturday before and I'm not going to be able to go to the Phillies game with my friends because I'm having to read a book.
Yeah.
And I don't want to read a book if I could be going to a Phillies game.
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
I thought that was like a serious question. I was so concerned.
Or a horse. I don't know, some large animal.
It's an elephant, I think.
It's just like, how do you break that down over a long period of time?
Yeah.
Because your situation that's stressful may be big. So don't try to like tackle the whole thing at once. Today, I'm going to be faithful in this. Tomorrow, I'm going to be faithful in this.
Yeah.
And I think that's true with like stress, your fear, your anxiety. Like it takes like, you just have to chip away at it slowly because otherwise like it will consume you. But the more and more work you can do to like slowly pick it apart, the more freedom you can have, which is something I learned in counseling. And it was super beneficial because I didn't even realize that was happening. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for this podcast on fear. Also, just a reminder, if you guys feel like fear is super overwhelming, or stress is really overwhelming in your life, it is super important to talk to people. So make sure if that is the next step that you have to go and do that. But thank you guys for joining us.